It's my pleasure now. This individual needs no introduction, so I'm just going to say that, again, Sheldon, very compelling with the panel yesterday. The work that you've done over time has been unbelievable. And again, we appreciate the fact that you're here. I'm going to turn it over to Sheldon Kennedy, so please welcome Sheldon.
Good morning. Bonjour. Bienvenue. What else do I know? That's for you, Jocelyn. Hi, everyone. What a day yesterday. Never thought I'd be here, to tell you the truth, but anyway, here we are. And we're going to have a conversation. And I think today I'll tell a little bit about Sheldon's story, not much, but I really want to just talk about some work we've done with change around issues and integrated practice and being consistent in the way that we do this work. And, you know, I think that we have to find solution. We have to find hope. We've got to celebrate work that's been done. I mean, I told my story in 1996. 1996. Kennedy's a liar. How dare he bring our game down? He's wrecking the game. Graham James would never do this. Hockey Man of the Year. Hockey Man of the Year. Kennedy, drunk, been arrested. Bad apple. Bad kid. Terrible kid. He's a drunk. And they were right, because I was. And, but that was the headlines. That was me. And so I think if by being up here, if we're talking about change, because that's what we're talking about, change is absolutely possible. Because I was the laughing stock of the game of hockey. I was absolutely an outsider. I would be the last person on a list that anybody thought would ever be an Order of Canada recipient or Order of Hockey recipient or Alberta Order of Excellence, or Manitoba Order, or a member of Canada Sports Hall of Fame. Like, who would have thunk? That loser? Time in jail. I was the ping pong champ in jail, though. I was good. I was good. But talk about embarrassing. But you guys had the same headlines I did. I had headlines like that too. I had to stand in front of the press and talk about how I just went to treatment center, 20 years old, how I was a drunk, how I had to go to treatment center, and I just got out of a treatment center, and they called it back then a dry out center. Kennedy's going to get dried out. My roommate was Bob Probert. So, and they put us together because they thought we'd be good influence on each other. I'm not sure if that was the right thing to do, but anyway, he's dead and I'm here. Poor guy. I love that guy. And addiction killed him. And that's real. And addiction's about silence, our inability to talk, our fear of talking. But these are headlines. These are real headlines. This is what I was reading. You know, this is what I was reading. And here I am sitting there, and I know I had a voice, and I know I took a stand. For 27 years, I've been a victim's advocate. I received the Order of Hockey for being a victim's advocate, and I needed to stand up for victims. And I took a stand. And we also needed to stop digging the hole, so that we could start moving forward. Stop the hole, getting deeper and deeper. So seeing as we're being honest in this room yesterday and today, I thought I'd better say that. But that was my stand. Do you think that was an easy position for me to do? I've got lots of friends in here. Do you think that was an easy stand for me to take? Given the work we've been doing together for 16 plus years? No. It wasn't. So we'll move on. This is what I believe. And this is what I think the gift is that we have. This is the gift we have. What an opportunity. And I think if you look at society today, our kids need trusted adults that are compassionate and caring more than ever. More than ever. And that's a fact. We know that the numbers of child abuse were through the roof during COVID, which highlighted the importance of sport in society, the importance for wellness and well-being, and a tool for anxiety and depression and mental wellness and physical wellness. If anything was highlighted in my world, it was that. It's more than just winning. But this is a gift that we have. I played junior hockey. I left home. I played junior hockey, and I remember getting on the bus for the first time, and I was asked to go in to visit Graham James in Winnipeg. We grew up in a small town, and Mom and Dad couldn't put me on the bus fast enough. And I couldn't have got on the bus fast enough because I was pumped. Holy, like, really? Like, me? Me? And then I get under the grasp of Graham James. And as a kid, I've never heard about this in my life. And who do I go to? Because you see how he was connected in the hockey world. You couldn't say nothing to anybody. And I didn't even know how to say anything. How do I even explain to anybody what just happened? I couldn't. And it wasn't just me, as we found out. There is many, and there's many more that haven't come out. Just so you know. And they can't because of the fear of saying anything. And I was a kid that went in and got on that bus as a kid that was pumped and loved the game of hockey. Never had a stick out of my hand. Loved sport. And I came back on that bus wondering, who am I? What just happened? And get me out of this world. I don't even want to be here. And I had to fake the fact that I loved the game of hockey all the way through to my end of my NHL career. I was struggling to stay alive. And once alcohol and drugs and reckless behavior became a way that I ran from the way I felt. And it wasn't until I got traded to the Calgary Flames that Graham James was given a franchise, the Calgary Hitmen, that I saw him outside of the locker room, and I'd walk out of the locker room, and my life was a gong show and not good. And here he is with these young players, and here's my wife pregnant with our young daughter, and I thought, geez, I'm never going to be the father and the person I want to be if I don't say anything, and I can't let this happen anymore. And I remember how petrified I was to say anything and the fear to go against, because we were conditioned to not say anything. You don't go against the grain. And it was just the way it was. We weren't told don't go against the grain. It just was the way it was. That was the hockey bubble. Maybe it is still. Probably maybe a little better, but I think it's still probably there. And I was petrified to say anything, that nobody was going to believe me. Because I'd been in the headlines my whole hockey career for being a drunk and a wild child and a troublemaker. Who's going to believe Sheldon, loser? And I remember Detective Brian Bell from the Calgary Police Department when I told this story. And it's just going to be about, you never know who you're going to impact. I told my story, Detective Brian Bell, and he says, you know, it was the most calm experience I had around sharing my story, and he seemed to know the right questions to ask. And we were in an undisclosed house because there was media articles that were coming out naming me already before why I wasn't in Boston. And they were already naming who it was, and so we had to be very careful about how we went this so it didn't go about this. But anyway, fast forward to this summer, I reconnected with Detective Brian Bell, who was the investigator at the time, and he had been abused in his home by his mother for years, and he's writing a book, and I walked into a police station. It's not like I seeked out. I just walked into the police station and I asked for a detective to help me, and it was him, and he's writing a book about the connection and how that interview helped him and the journey helped him deal with his issues. But I remember being so petrified that I was the only one that this had ever happened to. And I remember the headlines, like, you know, isolated incident, you know, like one-off, doesn't happen, you know, it was. And I just remember the letters I received. We had over 200,000 letters come to the Boston Bruins office of men and boys and women and girls and mothers and fathers and partners to come in there to say, this happened to us, or I have a daughter or a son, or I lost my son or daughter, not finding out till after of what gone on. So I realized right away I was not alone. And that's huge. Because sometimes when you're in a systemic system, and systemic, what I've learned, as we were doing the independent review panel with the CHL, systemic is not on an individual. It's on a system. It's on a system that's been created for a long time, that we conform to, that we learn from. So in a systemic system of suppression, Graham Jameses of the world seek those places out. They thrive. They thrive in those places because they know nobody's going to talk. Bad behavior thrives there. That's where they want to be. Do you think they want to be in a place that is open and honest and practices psychological safety for all? Not a chance. That's going to be our best defense. This isn't a one-off. Sheldon Kennedy's not a one-off. For 26 years, we've heard story after story after story after story after story after story after story. Non-stop. We can't sit here surprised. We can't. I know Ashley's here from the IIHF, and Ashley and I sit on a 10-person panel with Prince Faisal Hussein with the IOC, trying to figure out a place to spend money with, best place and best strategy to spend $50 million what the IOC has around safe sport. What impact can the IOC have? How do they reach grassroots? And I don't know, like, I got my grade 10, so keep it simple, stupid, right? I knew it would come in handy at one point in my life, but when you look at these issues, if you look at these issues that we're talking about carry a significant amount of fear and stress and worry and confusion. So when I hear those words, which was my head when I went into my 7th treatment center that finally allowed me to get some sort of sobriety and peace, that means I got to break this thing down to the lowest common denominator to get started. You know, Are we at letter A of the alphabet? I don't think we're at letter A. I think there's been some good stuff. There's pockets of good work that's been done over the years. There's no doubt. We've got to recognize that. But we're definitely not at letter Z. And we need to keep building off some of the foundations that have been put in place. And this is critical. What did I hear my whole life? The game is 75% mental. I felt mental the whole time I played the game. If the game's 75% mental, like what is mental? Is it mental visioning a breakaway? Yeah, that's part of it. We know, and if we're talking about data and research, the data and research tell us that when we have healthy cultures, we perform better. If that's what we want to talk about. Healthy cultures get better results. End of story. That's what the research tells us. So, do we want to win? Do we want to be the best we can be? I think so. I'm going to talk a little bit about system change. These are big systems. These are systems that had some turmoil around investigation, around child abuse cases, around not working together. A child would come into the system, disclose severe sexual abuse that's happening at home. None of these big logos, which you could put, a Hockey Canada logo on or a Hockey Alberta or Hockey Quebec logo on, and just, none of them work together. None of them talk to each other. None of them work together. We focused, and these systems, and I remember I got asked to go down and speak in Denver for the First Lady of Colorado. And I said, why am I here? Like, what do you want me to hear? And she was an advocate for child abuse. And she says, well, it's for the Ralston House. And I said, well, I want to go see what the Ralston House is. I want to tour the Ralston House. Well, there was houses that were situated throughout the community in Denver, Colorado, that were built with healthcare providers, nurses, doctors, crown prosecutors, police. And it's where they went to do the interviews and the investigations. And I said, well, we need this in Calgary. We came back, and I sent a note to the chief of police, and I said, we don't have any of this here. Like, if I buy a house, or we buy a house, my little buddy Wayne, if we buy a house, and we'll put that up, can we create these systems? Can we bring these systems together? And I remember these systems sitting around the table, and they all had their lawyers with them, right? Oh yeah, we'll show up with the lawyer, come in, right? And they all had their lawyers, and they came around the table, and all the conversation was, oh, we can't do this because of this, and we can't do that because of this, and this, and we can't do this because of this, and okay. So then we went to the minister, and we said, okay, we're going to put together a piece of legislation that just breaks out of the information sharing legislation that actually states in there that we are allowed to share information in the best interest of the child. So now we put a standalone piece of legislation together. It's called the Children First Act, which allows the information of sharing happening between these centers. So now we took the excuse right out of the equation. So then we come back around the table, but what we've realized is integrated practice is not people in the same building. Integrated practice is a taught skill. It's a taught skill, and it's ongoing. People don't know how to work together. You think about a team. How much time do we spend? Like, okay, think of this. You think you're going into the Olympics, and you got your forwards over here. They're in the Westin Hotel. We got the defensemen in the Sandman. We got the goalies. They're out by the airport. They're in the airporter, right? We got the coaches. They're going to be down in Okotoks, right? We've all got our game plan, and we can all strategize what that game plan is going to be. And then we all show up at the rink, and we got to execute the game plan. How do you think that's going to go? Not very good. That's the way we were investigating child abuse. None of these people talk to each other. And you wonder why kids fall through the cracks? Integrated practice. To me, hockey is hockey. People don't separate hockey. People don't separate Hockey Canada from Hockey Alberta to Hockey Ontario to the AHL to the IHL to the CHL to the PWHL, which is new, and congratulations for that league. Right? Like, they don't draw the difference. Hockey is hockey. Whatever rink you go to in this country, why don't we have a consistent approach to a psychological safe locker room strategy, rink strategy? Doesn't matter what team you are, what age group you are at, hockey is hockey. We make it different in here, but it's not different. It is not different. And we had to break that down with these organizations. And we did. And we're going to celebrate 10 years at the Calgary Child Advocacy Centre here. These are our numbers. This is real numbers. This is on the first 5 years. So if you look at these numbers, 7,900 victims that we investigated. You can double that because we're now at year 10. But here's what we're dealing with. And if you look at this is less than 10% of the cases that come into the system. These are the most severe cases, and those are big numbers. So to think that we don't have any young hockey players in here is pretty naive. Or young gymnastics kids. They're coming in, I'm telling you, I walk those hallways every day. And I talk to many kids. And they're pumped because they're getting help. And we can give them hope. And they got their little hockey jacket on that they're proud of. And they're pumped. We need to be the best we can be because we don't know who's coming in our door. These kids are coming in our door. And if you look at it, 95% of these kids know their abuser. Over 50% of these kids are abused by a parent or caregiver. Where's the safest place for them? And a lot of times, outside the home. They're already coming into our organization vulnerable. Hence the reason we need to be the best we can. And to me, we couldn't have done this without the leadership of these. To drop their egos at the door and say, you know what? Yeah, like, okay, we'll try. That's all we needed. That's it. We know better today. It's not a slam on anybody. These are issues. Everything that we talked about yesterday is stuff we didn't even talk about 5 years ago, 10 years ago. When I told my story, nobody talked. I rollerbladed across this country. 8,500 kilometers. I only went rollerbladed once, but it was a long one. I stopped in every community across here. We talked. It was the first time we were filling arenas in First Nations communities, around residential schools, being drummed in, having conversations. Being able to recognize and understand, and we talk about the impact. Right? Like we talk about the impact. The leading contributor to mental health issues in our society. And I'm not talking about mental illness, I'm talking about mental health issues. And we want to talk about trauma. I've done a ton of work with Dr. Vincent Folletti, Dr. Bruce Perry, Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris. We're coming out with a film. We had a film 20 years ago, Mark McGuire Foundation, we funded a film. We are now going back and after 20 years and interviewing the same people that we did 20 years ago. And it's all around trauma and the journey and the impact on siblings. And you want to talk about the generational side of it. And I heard yesterday, and Mike, I have no idea what time it is, so give me 5, 10, whatever. But I heard yesterday, we've got minor hockey kids where we're not allowing parents to be around. We're not allowing parents to be around. We're isolating parents from, well, wasn't that the decision of residential schools? Wasn't it? I don't know, but I thought I heard that. My wife is First Nations. She comes from Teslin, BC in the Yukon. Her dad was a residential school survivor. That's what he told me. Separate the child from the parent. What are we doing? You know? Like, really? Here's our newest center that's going to be opening this month. Next month, sorry. This is in Red Deer, right across the road from our friends at Alberta Hockey. And this is the Central Alberta Child Advocacy Center, Center of Excellence, all around research and practical teaching on the campus of the Red Deer Polytech. And what we're doing is we're building curriculum for all our young social workers, nurses, teachers around integrated practice. And it goes beyond child safety. How do we work together in organizations? And this is 80,000 square feet. We have 24-bed long-term mental health beds for kids that are suffering, because right now they go into the hospital and they only have 3 beds. So whoever comes in the next day, the one gets popped out. Where do they go? Back out in the street. So I guess the moral of the story is, when I told my story, I thought I was alone. And if we're talking about change, change is possible. And if we're talking about hope, we got to give it. We have to give it. And I know, because I've grown up in the game, probably not the way I dreamt as a kid, but somehow I'm in the game. And we're doing our best. But I can tell you that every case that we interviewed or investigated, there were bystanders. Everyone. There's people that knew. I used to be teased on the ice by other players and other coaches about being shacked up with Gray and James. You tell me that people didn't know? You tell me? I don't buy it. Anyway, but at the end of the day, we have an opportunity to be, hitting the wrong button. We have an opportunity to be really good, right? And I think we have an opportunity to be a leader. And I've been saying this for a long time. We really can. And I think that's what we need to do. Not just, yes, we need to celebrate gold medals. But I'm telling you, if we don't have kids signing up and registering for hockey, and if we want to be honest, I know those numbers aren't where we want them. If we want, then we better meet kids where they are. And right now, we're not. And those places need to be a safe place for those kids. And this is not just a big city problem. We just did a data analysis of 80 communities that this center is going to reach. This is not, I'm telling you right now, a big city problem. This reaches every community in central Alberta, the area that this advocacy center is going to place. Small towns, and why? Because it's about trust. I'm coming in as the super volunteer. Who's ever going to question me? I get access to everything. Nobody's going to ever, don't you dare say anything about Fred or Julie. They would never do that. Because our perception, be careful of that white van that's cruising around, because they're going to jump out and get you. No, it's not that. It's Hockey Man of the Year. And here's a little sport data for you. I don't know. That's a lot. Right? Those are a lot of numbers. 31% of female athletes indicated that they had experienced sexual abuse before they were 18. Those are pretty high, right? But if you read the bottom part, hardly any disclosed because they're too scared. So we have to understand the magnitude of what we're talking about. And that's what I'm trying to do here today, is to really understand the magnitude of the issues that we're talking about and the importance of a psychologically safe space for all. It's critical. And I was debating whether I was going to put this in, but I just want to talk a little bit about, so moving forward, I got permission to speak about this from a friend of mine named Kyle Beach and another friend of mine named Stan Bowman. I got connected with Stan. I'd never met the guy before, after he was fired by the Chicago Blackhawks. And I started talking to Stan, and I'm not sure why I was connected with him, but I was asked to connect with him. And I just started chatting. And he showed a huge amount of commitment and knowledge and remorse and shame. And he wanted to make a difference. He wanted over 10-4 over. I was hauling potatoes, so we have lots of CVs out there. 10-4 over. So anyway, we got connected, and I said, Stan, what happened? Like, what was the breakdown? Why does something like that happen? How does that happen? How does it happen? And he went on, and his version, and I won't get into that. And over 2 years, and we committed, and I was talking to Kyle at the time, just checking in, see how he's doing, and I would ask him, I'd say, like, what needs to happen? Where are we? Like, what needs to happen to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Right? Like, what do we need to do? And we need to learn and teach and facilitate a conversation. We need to talk about these things. What's our biggest challenge? What I heard yesterday was talking, communicating. How do we communicate around this? So we set out to try to create something where we could facilitate a conversation around the word respect, mutual respect. Allow them to create their own. So we asked Ronnie Robson at the Western League if he could pilot three teams that we could have Stan and another guy, Tom, come in and facilitate this charter. And I wasn't going to play it, but I thought, you know what, let's play it, because I think it's there are things being done. And I think, it shows that our young people are there. I'm telling you, the players are totally comfortable to have these conversations. The adults in the room are not. They think, oh my God, we can't talk about that. They're like, they've been there forever. We've been educating in schools for 26 years, right? They're there. Why do you think there's an expectation that these things are in place? They now have kids, or they're adults, or they're volunteers. It's like, this doesn't scare them like it scares my generation. If I didn't go through this, I would have never had a chance to learn about it. So I'll just play this and then I'll finish up.
We want to have a great organizational culture. We want to be part of a great team. And for a lot of times, people just thought that just happened naturally, right? But hope is not a strategy. This is about you guys talking with each other at your tables and creating a document that we're going to use moving forward.
Well, the Western Hockey League has had a long-standing partnership with both the Canadian Red Cross and the Respect Group, and directly with Sheldon Kennedy in building the Respect in Hockey program that we have in place today. It's mandatory for all WHL players and is a critical part of educating and training our players on the importance of respect.
We need to hear from every voice. We need to make sure every player feels that they're a part of it, they're included. And I think the most part is that, I think there's a clearer understanding that if we're not taking part of, and making psychological safety in our locker room or as individuals a priority within our organizations, we're never going to be who we want to be. And I think that culture was usually built on a hope and a prayer, and I think what we're trying to do is bring some structure and strategy to that.
Championship organizations are places where every single member of the team feels they are safe, feels they belong, and feels that they are connected and have a future with the people around them.
The idea is that if we want hockey players and organizations to really own their culture, we have to give the people who live that culture the opportunity to create it. And the structure that we've created through these workshops is players sitting down, naming the things that they need to be at their best, and then talking to one another about how they're going to create those things and how they're going to hold each other accountable for them.
So this Respect Charter really fits in well with our Respect in Hockey programming. I truly believe that we've been leaders in this area for a long time, and this is just a natural progression of how we continue to look to improve our programming for the benefit of the players and ultimately providing a positive environment for the players to play within. So I think this is just the next step in that process.
I have everyone here work on themselves.
To me, I think this can be a tool where hockey can lead, and I think that we need to create a hockey strategy, not just a WHL strategy, not just a CHL strategy or NHL strategy. I think we need to create a hockey as a whole strategy, and this is part of it. And I think, we chose the Western Hockey League to be the 3 pilot partner in this because we felt that there was no other league that was doing more in this space than them. Coming off last year with the Respect Champions, and so there was an effort. There was a little bit of a foundation already built. But to me, this is about the future of hockey. This is how we have to operate. I mean, if you look at any healthy organization inside and outside of sport, I mean, this is what they're doing.
The WHL plans to take the Respect Charter and implement it within our Respect in Hockey workshops, and those are ongoing, and we'll be implementing those later this season. We're very fortunate to be in a position to have piloted this project and look forward to implementing it on a league-wide basis so that everyone in the league can participate, all the players and all the teams concerned.
So that's not to, I just wanted to show that, and I didn't want to highlight one league over another league, but, we just ran a charter. Kyle Beach coaches Trinity Western University for the men's and women's programs. And we had Stan Bowman there and Kyle, and they were in the charter together. And they could teach. Between the two of them, think about that. Right? It was good. But to be able to get to that point took 2 years of really hard work and commitment for them, for the two of them. And I wanted to go. I was chomping at the bit to go. I didn't go on purpose, but and I'm kind of glad I didn't go, because it's not about Sheldon. It's about them. And so I don't know. I like this quote. Keep it simple, Sheldon. Right? But if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. Right? And so, you know, I think this morning, I think that we're started, as Pat and Denise and everybody said. You know, we're going. And, you know, I think one of the things that I was most impressed with yesterday, and I told Emily this, you know, one of the biggest takeaways that I had was her honesty about being an agent. That's huge, because if we don't get honest about that stuff, that is the culture. That is what we're talking about. And I thank you for your honesty on that. And I also want to say that change is absolutely possible. And I don't think it's as hard as we all think. But sometimes we get comfortable in the work that we do, and we want to make sure we get to the cabin and we get to all those places. Change is tough. And if we really care and we want to make a difference, we'll commit to change. But what I know is when we got the 250 employees over the hump of their fears and worries around change, they'd never go back and work another way. So now we're building capacity. And when we reach down to the grassroots, because ultimately that's where we need to get to, right? We need to get to the Flin Flon, Manitobas. We need to get to the La Ronge, Saskatchewan, right? We need to get to the Bedeck, Nova Scotias. We need to get there, because that's where the change is going to happen. We need to build capacity. We need to help them get there. And if this is the leadership of hockey, and in hockey, that's our job. If we're in a leadership role, to me, that's what leadership is. It's our job. It's not somebody else's job, it's our job. And I'm committed to help however I can. All of this work around the Child Advocacy Center, that's all my volunteer work. We donate money to that. We give money to that. I am committed to change. You have a board member that was part of that change, that ran social return on investments. The money we were saving by integrated practice was ridiculous. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. And these systems, I mean, our whole model, we don't have to raise another penny because of the business model that we put together in Red Deer. It's all AAA leases with the government. If we go about this in a strategic way, economically, which I think is a big issue too, is going to benefit. And I think when we have a healthy organization, everybody benefits. So with that, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Pat and Denise and your entire crew for inviting me here. I know it probably wasn't an easy decision after the stance I took. I know it wasn't. But I'm here. I'm with you. I want to help. I don't have all the answers. Not even close. I don't think I ever will. I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 27-year-old. My 5-year-old just said, I think I want to play hockey, Dad. And I got to tell you, my gut turned. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want it to happen. I want him to play hockey, right? I want them to be involved in sports, and he loves it. But, you know, I don't want to have him go to tryouts at 5. We're already rejecting him at 5, right? I don't want that. My neighbor's kids were 5. Came back, and she was well wound up about, anyway, that's another topic. I'm probably over time. But with that, I just want to tell you all that I'm very grateful that I came here. I'm grateful I'm here. When I started talking about this, I was alone. And I know for a fact I am not alone anymore. There are many voices. There are many advocates and champions in this space. And it's actually kind of nice. You know, it is really good. And, you know, I can take a back seat and I'm pumped about that because this is hard work. And I think as we're going through this work, one thing not to forget about is making sure you take care of yourself. Because this is difficult work. And I have seen many frontline workers get taken out because of working in this space. So don't forget about that. Thank you.